would like to say a big thank you to Sean for being here today. If you have any questions, please post them in the Q&A session, and we've got Dom who's going to help oversee that. And if you have any problems, please, you can message Dom in the chat section privately to ask your question. The webinar will be recorded today. We will put it on our YouTube account so that people and other members can watch it again. So makes it very useful. So without further ado, I'm going to hand over to Sean.
Okay, thank you, Paul. Good afternoon, folks. Going to talk to you today. We've broken down the topics to try and go through with you. So I'm going to just touch on a bits of the guidance and support that's out there at the moment. Hopefully, most people will have used or received some of this that's out there. We'll then just go on to some of the risks and opportunities that are presenting themselves. And then I'll finish off just going through some of the tools and techniques that you might want to consider to help you in your business. Okay, so firstly, just with regards to guidance and support, before I start talking about some of the financial support that's out there, just make sure you're calling on people in your sort of network. So hopefully I know I've seen the regular emails that have come out from the chamber, some of the topics and the grants that are out there. You know, we've certainly been sending things out to our clients. So all of your sort of trusted advisors and people around you, just make sure you're all talking to each other and you know, and you're helping each other out, because there's definitely support amongst the business community out there. In terms of the government support, I'm just going to go over that now. So the grants, first and foremost, those of you with business premises and receiving the business rates relief, the local authorities have been providing grants now, and certainly the feedback that we've had from our clients is everybody seems to have received the payments for that now. If you think you may be entitled to something, please contact the local authority. But I know the feedback we had from Cheshire East was that the payments came out pretty quickly, so that's out there. If you're self-employed, you have the self-employment income support scheme. Again, those payments about within the last couple of weeks, they've all seemed to have been made now. So there is a claim for that, and there's going to be a second claim that you're allowed to make in August. So there's another one on its way.
Just Sean,
Yeah.
just on that local authority grant, I know you're just finishing off with the self-employed. There is a discretionary fund out now that's in addition to the local authority grant. I got told there's a figure of about 4.7 million that's available for those businesses in the Cheshire East area who may have fallen in the cracks of the support that's already out there. So they don't pay business rates directly, so they've not had that automatic grant. But there is an application form on the Cheshire East where they can apply. Say, for example, they pay for an all-inclusive rent, which includes rates. Right. So they've not had any grant. They can make an application for that. I think there is some quite detailed information that they need for it. But if they themselves on this call, or they know businesses that need that, then I think you can find it quite easily on Cheshire East's website. So I just thought I'd just mention that there.
No, it's brilliant. I was going to say, because when we first looked at them, certainly around the businesses down that we have in Staffordshire and Staffordshire Moorlands, Cheshire East website seemed to have the first one that got the link to put the bank details and your rates reference number. So they seem to be very proactive on it. So yeah. I'm sure if they go on there, they will find it. It is pretty good. Or it certainly was anyway. Yeah. Okay. Further support that there is around, I think we had a chat just before we got started on the job retention scheme. So that's still in place. It has been extended to October, although there's going to be some phasing back of the support, if you like, starting in August. Eventually, whereas it will be down to 60% of staff wages later on. So businesses just need to be careful on that, because it is, whilst it's being kept open, it is going to be reduced. In terms of tax payments, we've had a deferral of the VAT payments, so that's still in place until the end of June. So no VAT to pay until 1st of July. And they've also stopped the self-employment payments on account that would have been due at the end of July as well. So tax payments for people in the self-assessment system just need to settle everything up at the end of January next year. So in terms of the tax payments and the cash flow, that's been deferred. In addition to that, you know, other taxes, for example, corporation tax payments, or if people are struggling with their pay-as-you-earn bills, the government will be open to conversations. If you need some sort of payment plans in place or deferrals, they will be open to phone calls. I've got a helpline number. I might as well make it available to everybody. It's 0300 200 3822. The one thing I will say is people, clients that we spoke to, they've tried to do things the right way. They've tried to speak to HMRC and ask for a deferral or a payment plan. That number was absolutely inundated, as you can probably imagine. So if you can't get through, we have been able to get some advice from them, and they've just said that if you can't pay and you can't get through, don't pay it. Make a note of the time that you tried to contact them, and they will just assume that the non-payment's due to, you know, the coronavirus sort of pandemic, and they'll take that into consideration. But I think the right thing to do is to still try and speak to them and try and get it agreed with them up front, really. But that they are being very good about helping cash flow and businesses paying the taxes. So, you know, it is a positive one. And then further things just on the finance. Sorry, before I come to finance, just a quick one on universal tax credit. It's one that I think most business owners, you know, would overlook. But if there used to be, it was quite complicated the way he worked it out, and there was a ceiling limit that was deemed to be your income. That limit has been removed now. So for those people who've suddenly found themselves with absolutely no income at all, you can make a claim on that basis and tell them literally that you've got no income. They will put you through that system, and you can claim for universal tax credit. Now, again, when it first opened, it was, I think they had something like 500,000 claims in the first week. People are starting to find their feet now, and you know, and one way or another, are they getting some work and being able to do something, or they should be able to make that claim. So that's one that's out there that does get overlooked. And then rather than just support, this is the finance to help. So there's two main sources of finance that came out of it. The government set up what was called the Coronavirus Business Interruption Loan Scheme, or SIBLS for short. The problem that a lot of clients had with that, certainly in our experience, is in the grand scheme of things, they didn't want massive amounts of money. It was more of a case they needed funds to get them through 3 or 6 months, which is, you know, when this first hit, the government was talking about basically lockdown for 3 months, weren't they? So a lot of people were trying to look to get some sort of funding to just cover their outgoings for 3 to 6 months. And the problem with the SIBL scheme is that the lenders still wanted interim management information and full sets of projections that take account of the expected impact of COVID-19, which, you know, a lot of clients just aren't equipped with. They'll only have annual sets of accounts done. So they were finding they had to spend quite a bit of money with the likes of us guys as accountants who could have helped them with that information, but they're spending to get something, and the whole idea was that it was trying to make access easy for them to help them to get by. So that is still out there, and for the bigger sums, it's still relevant, but the bounce back scheme is far better and far easier. So fairly recently now that's come out. You can the maximum claim is 50k or 25% of your turnover. It's capped at 50k. But I've helped a couple of clients, a family member do it. It's literally a 10-minute thing. You don't need to provide any accounting information at all other than your turnover, but there was no need to attach a set of accounts or anything like that. And it will go through. A couple of the banks, there was more information asked than the others, but generally speaking, it was a pretty straightforward process. And as I say, 50k in a lot of circumstances has been enough for people to just get by. So that is readily available and accessible now, and I think that's a real positive one, and it'll form part of what I'm going to discuss in a little while about some of the opportunities that that are out there as well. Okay. That's pretty much it on the guidance and support. I suppose, is it a good time to just ask if there's anyone's got any questions on that before we move on? Or
well, yeah, if anybody's got any questions, I've got one. I think Joanne's asked, are there any of the banks offering the loan that you'd recommend?
So the generic answer to that, Joanne, is yeah, there all will be. There's a huge panel of lenders. Certainly all the high street banks. It doesn't. I mean, the first place to start would be your own business bank, but they're all offering it. This is readily available. It's not like it's a niche lender or a niche panel of lenders. This is open for everybody. From the lender's side, it's 100% backed by government, which is why there's not the requirement for any information. The banks effectively can't lose out of this. So as long as you meet the qualifying criteria to apply for it, then this is there for businesses. The intention is for it to be easy.
Yeah, I think they've eased the process as well, hasn't it? Online, I think has become a lot more easier to do that.
It's very straightforward. Okay. I've done one personally. They aren't difficult to do.
No. Okay. Thank you. We've got no more questions, but please feel free. We can interject with a few questions. So thanks, Sean.
Okay. So just moving on to what are obviously risks, and I always quite try and be quite positive with risks, as in that they bring about opportunities at the same time. So a couple of areas that would reach out for, as far as I'm concerned, to talk about is the obvious is the availability of work out there and the actual market conditions. So and it is easing a bit now, but I think initially it was a case of people just couldn't do the work. The availability of work wasn't there simply because the restrictions in place made that you couldn't do it, or you didn't have the staff to do it because you couldn't get them in. It was just all the work just wasn't there at all because financially people have had to stop what they're doing and pull the plug in the short term. But I think what we've been seeing now is, lots of conversations that I've had with just my own clients, business contacts, and then just businesses that are around me locally, are that people are brilliantly finding new ways to adapt what they do and to reach their customers. So it's a case of, I think, just taking a step back, looking at your own business and thinking, what can we do to find or do the work that we know that could be out there. So things like the PPE has been more readily available now. I mean, I joked just before we started about hairdressers. There are now some specialist PPE and certain sort of full face masks that you can have. Restrictions around how many people are in the salon. We're all finding these little bits of ways that we can comply with the health and safety and still provide the service to our customers that we want to provide. So hairdressers are getting around it. Locally, our chip shop opened about 3 weeks locally to where I live. They've got the sort of plexiglass glass screens in place to separate you when you're in the shop. There's only so many people allowed in at one time, and they've got the 2 meter distancing. So they've been able to open up and are okay. And then just things like your staff and providing services. I mean, I always think it's slightly easier in our sector, but we are providing a service. We're not selling goods. So We, about 2 weeks before the lockdown hit, we were fully hosted desktop. So all of our staff have been able to work from home throughout the pandemic. We've been able to provide our services. We can use these Zoom calls now. So all clients that wanted to meet us, we can still meet. We can still see the whites of each other's eyes. It does work. You know, if you'd not used it before, you were worried about it, but it does work. So it's just a case of, you know, really thinking hard what you can do to change your business and how you can do it. And say the home working is another one. And one that I quite like as well is flexi time. I mean, we all do what we've always done. It's got to be 9 to 5. Well, it doesn't have to be 9 to 5, does it? You know, and I think we've all realised that now. And no production has gone down at Alextra, and our staff could be working 7 till 3 or whatever it is. As long as we all know that clients get looked after and the work gets done, everybody's happy. So it's just, you know, if you need to adapt your working day to get things done that suits your clients better, then there's no reason why you can't do that. The economic conditions I was going to talk about as well. So just following on from the bounce back loans, conversations that we're having with clients about that are absolutely brilliant. So bounce back, as I say, the first thing, you know, from the prudent accountant, I guess, is that I think that could be used to cover 3-6 months worth of overheads to keep your business afloat. That's got to be an obvious use of it. And it could even be there to help add to or replace any finance that you've got now that might not be at the same sort of rate, because at 2.5%, I just don't see you getting finance any cheaper than that ever again. So you know, you can use it for that. But then we've got clients talking about all other sorts of uses. So we've got a construction guy who's looking to buy some new plant and machinery to make his site preparation and his groundworks more efficient. He knows he's got orders that are ready to go that just can't start quite yet or can't start in full. But he's going to get, you know, he's going to get his plant at the absolute best condition he can be to do the work. We've got a guest house that's dying to open that can't, but want to be at the top of all the Google search rankings at the start. So they want to spend money on Google ad campaigns and things like that to make sure that they're at the front of the queue when everything opens up. So there's loads of ways that you can use that money to be, you know, the most effective for you. Things like a big recruitment drive. You know, whilst we've got some unfortunate businesses that are struggling, if clients are being laid off and you want to be at the top of the queue to get those good people, you know, getting agencies involved and, you know, paying a bit of money out to get the best people to kick your business on. All these things can be used with the finance out there to really to take advantage of things when the conditions relax a bit. So I do think we've all got to stay positive. Things are definitely changing. I think in the last 3 weeks you can see it. Businesses are moving on. There's more people out and about now. I think people are finding ways to adapt. So you've just got to be as good and efficient as you can be to take advantage of things and kick your business on when hopefully we come through this. And then just as I say, just on the risks out there, the one thing I was going to say is, again, from our point of view as an accountant, we're big advocates of actually doing those interim management information and doing some plans and projections and having an idea where you think you're going to be affected, what the outcome could be, what's your short-term outlook going to be for income. You know, is it going to pick up in the next month, 3 months, 6 months? Try and plan for it, and then actually do some accounts and measure how you've performed against how you thought you were going to perform, and keep doing that. As I say, lots of businesses don't. They just do the annual accounts at the end of the year. But the problem you've got is, you know, to get the most out your business advisors, the likes of us, you need to be keeping an eye on the numbers all of the time, because how do you know if your plans are being made to work if you're not measuring it? I guess most businesses out there measure operationally how they're getting on, but how often are they reviewing their finances compared to how they did. So we've always done it. We do our own projections. We plan from where we think we're going to be, and then we record our interim management accounts and check how well we've done against that. So I think, you know, any good accountant will tell you cash is king. You've got to keep on top of it. You've got to monitor it, and, you know, not just how much profit you're going to make, but when's the cash going to come in from that profit, and keep an eye on it. So it's massively important these times, more than ever now. Okay. I guess it's just before I go into some sort of tools and techniques that we can use. Is it, again, shall we just see if there's anybody who's got anything to ask on any of those before we move on? I've got the chat screen open. I can't see anything coming in here, so.
Yeah, we've got one through. With the BBLS, if you didn't lend the maximum permissible amount, are you able to apply for the balance in a second application?
Yeah, so off the top of my head, I don't think you can have two. You have to do one or the other, generally speaking, with the Sybil's loans. I think you are allowed to flip your Sybil's loan onto a bounce back loan, if you've had less than the 50k, but you can't do them alongside each other, is my understanding. I'll need to double check that, but that's my understanding. I don't think you can have both.
Fair enough. There's been a lot of coverage in the press about the percentage of loans that won't be paid back. Can we expect some action from the government regarding any obvious fraud, i.e. a loan not being able to use to keep business going on for an obvious non-intention to continue trading?
I mean, I guess to say on that, if people are doing it deliberately with no intention of paying it back, you know, when a business gets into difficulty, insolvency practitioners are either brought in, you know, by the company itself, Dominic, or by one of the creditors. So I think directors' conduct would be scrutinised by the insolvency profession. So if you were found to have taken the loan out and, I don't know, had the money personally and paid off your own mortgage or something ridiculous like that, then yes, you undoubtedly are going to get you're going to get come into problems, and there's going to be issues down the line with your conduct. But yeah, definitely. Are the people that's going to do that? Human nature tells you there probably is. You'd like to think that people are going to use them for the genuine reasons that they're there, but there's no way to guarantee that. But I suspect there's going to be the rogue element there that will inevitably, there always is, isn't there?
Fair enough. And then Richard has raised his hand, so I'm just going to let him talk. If you're there, Richard.
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Hi, Sean. Yeah, just on that point, yeah, they can convert a Sybil's to a BBL. I think they've got till November to do it.
Right, yeah.
But obviously it's limited to 50,000. Now I do know somebody who's got Sybil's for over 50,000. So whether they'll let them do the 50,000 as part of that loan, I don't know. But there is there is an option to convert. But one thing I've always said is, and I've said it again today in my blog, is the bounce back loan, with it being interest free for 12 months. Yeah. And as you said, at 2.5%, I just been telling everybody it's a no-brainer. Is that your? I know the bankers were a little bit cautious last week, but they always are when you're giving away free money. But is that your view as well, Sean? That, you know, if it's out there, then go for it. If it's not, if it's only just for a contingency.
Totally agree, Richard. Yeah, if you've been affected in any way by this pandemic, and let's face it, we all have, you could do a lot worse than putting it into a fighting fund just in case. And if you don't need to spend it, paying it back. Absolutely, I can't see any downside at all in having it. I think it's brilliant. Spoken to loads of clients about it. Loads of people are going for it. And as I say, there's a whole sort of host of things that you can use it for. But I totally agree with you. Yeah.
Thanks, Sean.
Yeah.
I think that's everything.
Okay.
Sorry, I disappeared there, Sean. Internet connection dropped out. I'm back.
Yeah, I saw you left us briefly. That's okay. All right, so just moving on to some of the tools and techniques, as I say. I'm going to start with the obvious ones that we see in our profession. Cloud software. Paul, we've known each other a while. We've been bleating on about this for a few years now. It's a massive one. We think for business owners, it's changed our industry hugely over the last 3 or 4 years. The automation that's out there, the time savings it provides to clients, it's brilliant. It's, things like a bank feed. Something happens in your business bank account, it goes straight in your software. Your software can be taught rules as to how to deal with it, so it just keeps your day-to-day bookkeeping time down to a minimum. And then far more importantly, that then you can start to then use it for these real-time management information that I keep speaking about, so you can see exactly where your business is at on a daily basis, who owes you money, who you owe money to, what's in your bank account. These key sort of financial metrics, they are there. So it's a massive one. Moving on from the stuff in the cloud sector, you've got to also consider all of the other software that's out there now. So streamlining your business is a huge one, and there's loads of software that can help you to do that. So taking the technology, taking that little bit of time, if you have been struggling with work-wise, to document all your systems. So if you've got a member of staff that's poorly and is away for 2 weeks, and only that member of staff knows how to do it, how does that help you and your clients in the short term? So if you've documented all of your systems and all of your processes, other people can follow it much more simply. Things like HR automation software, there's project management software tools that are out there now. There's credit control automation software that can link to your cloud accounting. So there's loads and loads of things that can make your life far easier, spend far less time doing things that aren't operationally important to your business, for you to outsource. So I just think they're huge things for people to look at the minute, and so those sort of softwares are massive ones to take on board and save yourself some time, really. We've mentioned about the interim accounting and management information. Forecasts all the way is something that the most important tools that are out there to manage what you've done against what you're projected to do. So getting forecasts, get your accountant to look into those and do those for you. I think it's really important at the minute. And if you're not going to go down the route and incur the cost really to get that sort of stuff done, then what I would encourage people to do is just have a very basic incomings and outgoings, a cash flow template. So as you know, each month, how much have you got to pay out to keep the doors open? I've got a very basic template spreadsheet that I'm happy to provide. If any of the listeners today want that, I can make it available to yourself, Paul, if you want to send it out, or they can send me the details and I'll give it to them. It is very basic. It doesn't take account of, debtor days or creditor days and future plant and machinery purchase and things like that, but it will record basics of monthly direct debits in and out and that sort of thing. So it'll cover that off, just so as people know exactly what they need each month to keep their business ticking over. So I think that's a good one and something I can provide to people if they want it.
Well, what we'll probably try and do, Sean, if we could pick that up, and Dom will collate a lot of the information that we've discussed today, and any links that we can send out to the attendees, we'll do that.
Yeah,
for you, no problem at all.
Yeah, we can get that email over to you. That's no problem. The other one was something I remember from my college days. As I said, this is an old one now, but I think it's quite relevant. We talked about maybe taking just that step back and looking at your systems and efficiencies and documenting them and just reviewing them to see if they can't be tweaked or adapted and improved. But with everything that's going on, just a basic SWOT analysis. So just assessing your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and any threats. Because of what's happened, for all we know, one of your major competitors could have come unstuck. Are you in the position to be able to take advantage of that? Their clients are still going to need looking after, and if they can't do it, you know, why can't you? Likewise, have you got any weaknesses or threats to you that you didn't have before that you need to consider? So I think just taking that step back now and just thinking as the business people that we are, rather than just doing what we all do day to day because we're all dead busy, we might just have that time to breathe and take the step back and just assess those. So I think that's something that's worth doing. And I say, if you can find something that's relevant, you can take the appropriate action then to try and take advantage of it really and improve it. So I think that's something that's worth doing. And then finally, the one common thing that we get, conversations, networking, business contacts, our own clients, etc. Massive thing for people to consider: outsourcing. And when I say that, people, a lot of the time the response can be, well, yeah, but outsourcing costs money. But I think what a lot of times people don't realize is that if you've got your staff, your chargeable fee earning staff, spending time doing non-fee earning stuff, so people dealing with IT or bookkeeping, insurance, fleet policies, whatever it is in the office, for every hour that they're doing that, it's an hour where they're not generating income for the business. So all the businesses that we speak to that have been able to grow and grow successfully, they've done it through outsourcing. So as I say, I think that's something to consider now as well. Don't try and get bogged down with stuff yourself. If you want to be able to concentrate on what you're good at, get the mundane stuff outsourced, streamline things, and and it should give you the time and the capacity to grow. Okay.
Okay, Sean, thank you. Thank you for that. Very interesting and some good sound pieces of advice there and support. And like I said, we'll get as many links out on an email to the attendees here today. I obviously missed a bit, but I don't think you've covered some of the questions. I have had some questions in, but please, anybody else wants to ask any questions, please do. What recommendations is Alextra giving to its clients in the retail sector, specifically pubs, restaurants and cafes coming out of lockdown? Tough question.
It is a tough question, and the honest answer is it's more support, calls, helping where we can. There's no obvious way with that, because the restaurants aren't doing too bad, as in they're able to operate a takeaway service, and a lot of them have adapted and started to do that now. So they're doing that. Again, feedback I've had from clients is that they aren't doing full menus because they might have staff on furlough, etc. So they're perhaps focusing on certain dishes, certain recipes that they know they can do well, they can generate quite quickly and do it that way. So they've perhaps streamlined menus and they've been able to get work out and get income that way. The pubs, I've got to be honest, are a tough one, because we've just got no answer to that to the minute, because I think they have had some relaxing in their licensing laws where they're allowed to do a bit of takeout type thing, but they're the one sector at the minute, Paul, that they're just struggling because they can't open up. I mean, there's talk about the weather that we've had, whether they could open the beer gardens and things, but I think the pubs are on a tricky one just at the moment. But as I say, the conversation I had before, just the guest houses in that sector, we've got them looking at making sure they top of things like Google rankings and TripAdvisor reviews and things like that, just so as when the relaxations are released, they're in prime position to take care of it. But in the short term, all we're able to help them to do is make sure they're taking the grants, make sure they've got all the support they need, they're furloughing staff, and then managing that cash flow. Because the one good thing that we can point out is that whilst they're struggling for income, if you've got a handle on your outgoings, so if your staff costs are covered by the furlough scheme and you've had the grant payment in, and you've got a bounce back loan, if there's not a lot going out, it can help you out. And we're all in the same boat. None of us can spend our money. We can't go to the pub. We can't go on holiday. We can't go and watch the football. We can't go to the cricket. So I think if you can just manage on ticking over and keeping the generic overheads covered, you can get through it. But other than the generic help and support, Paul, there's no, it's a tough one.
Yeah. I got one just on that, really. I think you may have answered it, but as we come out of lockdown, what would you recommend the route and avenues for reigniting your marketplace and business contacts? I suppose you mentioned something about Google, getting your rankings up, or, you know, is there anything there to do with your marketplace? Just, I suppose, keep customers informed, really.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing that we're doing is we are sending out the regular emails, updates to our clients. We're still doing networking, although it's networking not as we know it. It's Zoom networking and things like that. So you've got to keep in touch with people. And as I say, just there's far better marketing gurus out there than me. So maybe it's time to have a look at your website, have a look at your social media. You know, are you on top of that? Is it fresh? Is your content up to date on your website? I think the general housekeeping type points, you know, need to be done so as you're in position to take advantage of things as and when you can do.
Yeah. Okay. I've had one here, a comment from Gary. Hi, Sean. Great insight here. As you have indicated, many businesses are applying for grants and loans in order to protect cash flow and fundamentally keep their business afloat. Also, you mentioned that as a business owner, try taking the time to look into your business to see what you can change. It says, you know my passion and expertise, and it's a great time for limited SME to find out if they would qualify for research and development tax relief.
Yeah. Now I didn't know whether to touch on that today, so I'm glad it's being asked. The R&D claims are terrific, and at the minute, the amount of innovation that's out there means that the research and development claims is something for all businesses to consider. So just a quick one on that. It's not just people in lab coats and masks and pirate dishes and things that can claim for these. So if you've done something that solved some sort of technological uncertainty, it can just be an amendment of a process that makes something more efficient. We've done claims for people where they've changed brackets on lampposts to make them carry more weight. It's not just, people who are working on the vaccine for COVID-19. If you've done something that's done, solved some sort of technological uncertainty or improved some sort of process, then certainly we'd be happy to talk to anyone about that, because we can do research and development claims, and that the reliefs that the government offer are very generous. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Sean. Thank you for that question. Go on here. What advice is Alextra giving to clients regarding use of the proposed increased flexible furlough scheme? I suppose
it's there's no specific advice other than making people aware of what's out there. I mean, our view is you use any of these support grants as you need to keep your business operational and afloat. My worry, if I'm being honest, is the job retention scheme is probably being used simply to delay a number of redundancies down the line. That's my worry. But in the short term, people need to use it. If you've got a business where you've got some work back, but you're not fully able to go as you were before, then you don't need all of your staff, and that's when you use it. I don't think you should just be using it for the sake of using it. That's the first point. It's a case of operationally, how are you managing the demands of your customers? And if you are overstaffed for the current level of demands, you simply use it to balance the difference, if you like. The problem's going to be the 80% is going to be phased down to 60%, and that's going to start from August. So I think we've all just got to bear in mind now, we've got to try and be getting back to as close to normality as possible, because these support packages aren't going to be around forever. And let's face it, none of us want them to be around forever. I think we'd all love it to bits if we could all go back to normal on the 1st of September, for example, wouldn't we? So
yeah, the new normal,
yeah.
yeah. Okay, thanks, Sean. If there's any more questions, we're sort of reaching the point of which we advertised sort of 3:15 sort of finish, so we're there or thereabouts. But if anybody's got a final comment or question they'd like to ask, please ask now. So as I'm closing up, if anybody thinks of anything, we can come back to it. But no, I just wanted to say thank you, Sean, on behalf of the attendees. Found that very useful. Some practical information, reminders of what people can and can't do, and on how they might go forward. So I hope everybody here today has found that very useful. We did record it. It is on YouTube, so if you're able to share it with colleagues or businesses that you know, and if you wanted to watch it again, you can. Dom will send out some information with regards to some of the topics that were mentioned on here today. And also, if we could get any feedback on these seminars or webinars would be much appreciated, or any webinars you'd like to have in the future, any experts you'd like us to organise to come and speak as well. Any information we get would be really useful and help us with the topics that we put forward. We have got our next chamber panel meeting on the 11th. It's titled Prosper with Purpose in Digital Marketing. It's taking place on the 11th of June, 10:30 to 11:30. There's a panel there that are going to talk about digital marketing, which is probably heightened at this moment in time. So please join us for that. Don will certainly send out a link after this. So there's no further questions. I'd just like to say thanks, Sean and Alextra, again for your support. Really appreciate it. And if there's anything the Chamber can do during this time, help and support, please get in touch. And if you have any issues with some of the support schemes, please let us know. We are feeding this into BCC, British Chambers of Commerce down in London, to make sure they can pass the information to government. So please keep talking and please get in touch. But with that, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.